Wobbuffet is mostly known from the anime and hitting some questionable poses. But what if I told you it has some secret lore that has been hiding for nearly a decade? At first glance, Wobbuffet's body seems to be the one in control of all these emotes it's hitting. But once we take a closer look at its tail, things become a lot more clear. It bears a very similar look to another Pokemon. In Wobbuffet's BDSP Pokédex entry, it states that it desperately tries to keep its black tail hidden. This behavior is said to be proof that this tail hides a secret. This tail is definitely hiding something. So in my opinion, it does come down to a few theories, but the one I will be talking about today is a bit far-fetched. This theory goes that the tail is actually an Unown, and I won't lie, this does seem cap, but the more I looked into it, the more evidence I found. The theory starts that an Unown either gets released from a trainer or gets lost from its ruins. As it needs a way to protect itself, it finds a Wobbuffet or a Wynot body to attach and become the host of. This is because it's stated in Unown's Dex entry that when it's by itself, nothing happens. And just taking one good look at its stats, we can see that it would definitely have a hard time protecting itself on its own. Like I said, there's actually a decent amount of evidence to look at here. To start, Wynot's tail and Unown look very similar, and upon evolution, we can only assume that the Unown would evolve with it. Wobbuffet and Unown are also both Psychic type Pokemon, and they are both one of the few Pokemon who don't learn very many moves. Unown only knows Hidden Power, and that's it, and Wobbuffet only knows Status moves and Retaliation moves. We can chalk up losing Hidden Power and gaining counter moves as it losing a bit of its offenses for a more bulky host body. Wobbuffet also gets the move Destiny Bond, which matches up with Unown's mysterious power. It's theorized that its Destiny Bond is Wobbuffet taking the Pokemon to the unknown dimension, which we have seen multiple times in the movies. Shining Pearl's Pokédex entry states that these Unowns seem to communicate with each other through radio waves and telepathy, which makes sense as they are always in close proximity and seem to be able to work as one. This relates to Wobbuffet as in Gen 5 Hidden Abilities came out, and guess what new ability Wobbuffet got? If you guessed telepathy, you'd be right. Again, this can easily be a coincidence, but when so many of these coincidences add up, it's hard to ignore this theory being a little bit valid. When looking at its stats, this is where things become a bit more fishy. Unown's attack, special attack, and speed is higher, but has lower defenses, which again makes sense as Wobbuffet would lose some of this attack for better defenses to protect itself. Its HP would obviously be higher as well because now it's in a dummy body taking hits for it, but the stats lining up like this is not what makes it interesting. It's the stat points themselves. If we get rid of the HP because we already established that it's high due to the new host body, we can see that both Wobbuffet's and Unown's attacks, defenses, and speeds match. I am pretty confident to say there's no other Pokemon that matches up like this. Yes, there is Pokemon like Mew or Glalie that have the same stat in each category, but having both of these attacks and defenses stats point aligned in this order is unheard of. Yes, they are not exactly matching in stats, but we already discussed why its attack would be lower and its defenses would be higher. The fact that these stat points lined up like this really made me take this theory more seriously. The next thing I looked at was the Pokédex, and a lot of people don't know this, but Wobbuffet also came out in Gen 2 and not Gen 3, which is the same gen Unown came out in. But what was even more interesting was the fact that Wobbuffet comes right after Unown in the Pokédex order. This matters as Pokemon that are related to each other come right after each other in the Pokédex. For example, every evolution in the game, this is most likely the case. So you can chalk this up to being a coincidence, but again, what are the chances of them being right next to each other? Even so far, I can see a case where this theory is true. It still isn't enough, so I kept digging. In Wynot's Pokédex entry, it states they tend to move in packs, which isn't abnormal for Pokemon standards, as a lot of Pokemon do that, but with Unown, I'm pretty sure every single time in the series, it is seen with another Unown. Again, even the Pokédex mentions it is stronger when there's multiple of them. Another similarity between the two is that they both inhabit dark places. Unown, every time we see it, is in some sort of ruins. In Gold and Silver, it is found at the ruins of Elf, and in Platinum, it is found at the Celestian ruins. And we learn from Wynot and Wobbuffet's Pokédex entry, they both like inhabiting dark places. They mainly make their lair in dark caves to conceal their tail. In the games, we see this as Wobbuffet is found across countless caves in the series, such as Dark Cave in the Johto region and Reflection Cave in the Kalos region. In-game, when you encounter Wynot adds to this theory as well. It is a rare Pokemon only being able to be found in two places, Route 2 in Black and White and Mirage Island in Emerald. Mirage Island is particularly interesting to this theory. This is because of how rare the island is, and can only be located under certain requirements. Every day, a random number between 0 and 65,535 is generated by the game, and if the number matches the first 2 bytes of the personality value of any Pokemon in your party, Mirage Island will appear. If you don't know what any of that means, it's okay. Pretty much best case scenario, you have a 1 in 11,000 chance of getting to see Mirage Island. So yeah, it's really rare and way more of a flex than any shiny you ever have. This island is just like its name, a mirage or an illusion. Unown can be seen creating these types of real life illusions in countless movies, specifically in Pokemon the third movie with Entei. In the film, Unown create a lot of different things, but one of the main ones was creating an illusionary Entei for a child named Molly. It is shown that they are clearly able to make these illusionary beings, so Mirage Mirage Island wouldn't be anything new to them. What is linking Unown to Mirage Island is the only Pokemon that could be found there is Wynot. So if this island that disappears and reappears is exclusively inhabited by Wynot, it is not outrageous to think that these Wynot might have something to do with the island acting like a mirage. So that is most of the evidence I have found. There is still a couple missing pieces that don't necessarily dispute the theory, but are missing dots to fully connect it. For example, it's unclear if Wobbuffet and Wynot were a Pokemon by itself before Unown connected to it, or maybe it was just some separate entity. Wobbuffet and Wynot do just look like dolls or punching bags, so there's a pretty good chance Unown just uses as a body for protection. But the one item it does kind of look like is the Adrenaline Orb. Of course, that's pretty far-fetched, but I'm just throwing it in there. So with all the evidence we gathered, this is the overall theory. We start at the ruins of Elf, where some Unown get left behind before the rest of them go back to the unknown dimension. Since they don't know what to do, they wander off from the ruins of Elf. Some of them end up and go to Violet City. Not being able to protect itself, it attaches itself to the punching bag dummies at the gym or the Bellsprout Tower training grounds. Another group of these Unown go down to the Dark Cave, due to them trying to find another place like the ruins of Elf to reside. When arriving at the Dark Cave, they see some wild Wynots and Wobbuffets sitting sleeping unconscious. These Unown, just like the others, attach themselves and hope to protect themselves. This new kind of Wynot and Wobbuffet start to inhabit all over the Johto region. Once these Wynots evolve, they become more intertwined with the host and gain another eye. Wobbuffets begin to reproduce in inhabiting all over the other regions. Since there is still a little freshly attached Unown to Wynot, they still act how they acted when they were solo Unown, so they end up using their telepathy to meet up with one another. They decide to move out of the region and go find somewhere they can isolate by themselves. They make their way to the Hoenn region and use their illusionary powers to create Mirage Island so they can reside there. Across different regions, Wynots and Wobbuffets are now inhabiting the world, and that's where this theory comes to an end. Yes, it is an interesting theory and does have some holes in it, but it does have a decent amount of evidence to at least make it a theory. But anyways, make sure to subscribe for new Pokemon vids. I'm trying to hit 2K by the end of January. Let me know you guys' opinions on this theory, and I'll see y'all whenever I see y'all.